What is CYA? Let me tell you guys how I am careful when investing in sports cards. Stick around for the whole video. Hello to all my sports card collector and investor friends. I appreciate you coming back and joining us today again for another video. Today I'm going to be talking about, it might be an unpopular subject in today's very optimistic sports card investing environment. But it's something I think that we all have in the back of our minds, and so I thought it was something that would be good to talk about because I haven't seen a lot of content on this particular subject, and it's why and how to be careful when investing in sports cards. So I know that there's a lot of videos on where to kind of invest. We put out a lot of videos as well as different strategies. But there's certainly tons of optimism. There's loads of good things to talk about in the sports card investing world, but there are some kind of hidden factors I think that aren't being talked about enough, and so we wanted to put this video out. My wife was talking to me the other night, and she is big on CYA, which is short for cover your behind, and well, you get the gist. Anyway, when we're talking about investments, whether it's stocks or real estate, or anything that's traditional, you want to be kind of careful to hedge your bets. If you're in stocks, you probably have the majority of your funds. A lot of people do in the S&P 500, as opposed to having the majority of your money in penny stocks or day trading and the higher risk type stuff. Not to say that there's certainly good ways to invest in those things. Those are viable alternatives, but that's not necessarily where you might want to have all of your resources, or 80-90% of your resources. And the same goes for sports cards. So I made this mistake earlier in the year, and actually, what, let me take it back to the beginning. So I got into sports cards in the late 80s, early 90s, and me and my buddies, we would have, I remember the new Beckett magazine was the most exciting part of the month for me back then. This is 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And I remember getting the new Beckett. You'd have your cards, and then you of course scroll down through the sets and figure out what went up. And as kids, I mean, we're talking about 5 cents moving up to 10 cents. And people that are my age, exactly what I'm talking about. When a card went up to 50 cents, or it went up to $1, or you had a $5 card, that was crazy. So me and my buddy Alan, we would use those Beckett's, as ways to figure out ways to figure out trade value. So as we're looking at, I'm a huge New Orleans Saints fan. So for me, it was Bobby Hebert, it was, Ricky Jackson, Pat Swilling, Dalton Hilliard, these guys back in the 80s. These cards were the ones that I was looking for, among others. I mean, I appreciated all the other stars like Marino and Elway and so forth. But that's how I got started, really. I mean, buying and selling and negotiating, I can attribute that start as a kid in sports cards. That's how it started for me. That was my first introduction into, the investing, the buying and selling, reselling world. And so, when we go back then, we're looking at, that was just a lot of fun, and a lot of it was collecting, so there was loads of fun. But lessons to be learned is, and I talk about it all the time in other videos with Scarcity, is print runs were so high that there wasn't really any staying power with those cards. That's why they call it the junk wax era. There's very few cards, out of all the cards that were printed back then, very few of them, a very small percentage, really hold a lot of value, and they have to have high grades, and there's a lot of kind of factors that go into it. But if you're looking at the sum whole of what was printed in the 80s, 90s, and what's actually valuable, it's an extremely low percentage, as we all know. So I wanted to start off with that, and then I want to seg into a recent story to where I made kind of a not a similar mistake. It's a different type of mistake, but this past offseason, NFL offseason, I was getting into NFL rookie QBs that I thought could break out, and I was trying to kind of time that right. I put probably about $200 into Will Grier and another couple $100, maybe $250 into Ryan Finley for the Bengals. And I did get some of my money back on Finley when he did get that one start, or the couple of starts that he had with the Bengals. But now we fast forward, the Bengals have the #1 overall pick. They're most likely going to take Joe Burrow. there's no Ryan Finley era that we can see, there. And then when I look at there's a lot of good QB prospects coming out. Well, I should say there's a few QB prospects coming out, but then you still have a lot of older QBs that haven't retired yet, whether that be Breeze or Rivers or, these guys still have starting jobs. There's only 32 starting jobs in the NFL. So, as I'm putting money into these cards, I should, probably have just taken a step back and just thought about, okay, what are the chances that these guys are going to get a start, and do well, and their cards get a spike. Now, it did happen. It happened with Daniel Jones with the Giants, and I did make some good flips with Daniel Jones. Finley, I was able to sell a few of his when he started. I didn't get in with Kyle Allen with the Panthers when he made his start. And I know that his card spiked. So there are success stories, and I see a lot of people buying, Drew Lock, and Kyler Murray's a popular one. Now, he was a first overall pick. He's a starter, so that makes a little bit more sense to me. But I would just say that was a lesson that I learned. I was allocating a lot of resources for me because I'm on a budget. And, for me, $700 going into rookie QBs that are second, third string that may or may not get into the game, those might never pan out. And even if they do pan out, it could be next season, it could be 2 seasons from now, 5 seasons from now, that these guys get a shot and are successful. So yes, I'm buying them on the cheap, and there is upside, but kind of like when we talk about with penny stocks, there's upside there, and you're getting it for pennies, but it also could go out of business tomorrow. It's it might not ever happen. And so, something just to be mindful of when you're looking at resources. Always keep in the back of your mind, a guy is always an injury away from their career being over, or that's worst case scenario, an injury away, best case is an injury away from them being out for an extended period of time to where their cards are not going to have much movement, and or they're going to go down. So, when we look at, I'll just use a couple of examples. Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, their cards might not have dropped significantly. They may have. I don't have loads of data on them. But them being out for a year, it's not a good time to sell their cards. It's just not. The time to sell is when they're coming back. The season's about to start. There's hype around them. Not on injury. When they're on injury, that's a buying opportunity. If you think that they're going to come back and they're going to play at a high level, then that's a buying opportunity. But a lot of us are, for me anyway, I'm counting on flips. I'm counting on profit to be able to buy more. So, I don't have infinite resources. I don't have, the discretionary income to be able to, every month buy more and more and more. I have some that I can do that with, but all in all, I'm counting on, flips to be able to buy more inventory. And so, just something to keep in mind. If you've got, a guy that, if they're injured, then they're going to be on the shelf. There's nothing going on with them. And so that's just kind of sitting there and not making money. So something to just kind of keep in mind. Now, we never know who's going to get injured at any given point. So it's not like this is easy, to figure out. I would say basketball is a lot more safe, obviously, than football when investing in players from that standpoint. And baseball, I think, fairly safe as well. But that's just something that we all have to kind of, keep in mind as we're doing this. I think we also have to be really honest with ourselves of, when we talk about long-term hold, are you collecting? Are you a collector or an investor? For the people that are, everything's a long-term hold. I'm going to hold on to these for, 30 years. That's great, again, if you have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy and hold with. But, not everyone is a good, first off, a lot of players are not good long-term hold players. There's not enough data to show that, hey, if I hold on to these 100 players, that over 30 years I'm going to get a great return on it. I could argue, if I'm going back to the 80s, 90s when I collected and, collected, there was not, a lot of those cards are not, they're not worth anything. So, just be very careful with that. And I know people will argue with me and say that this is a different time, there's more money coming in, and there's, print runs are lower. Some of that is true, but the variables stay the same, as we just don't know. And, a lot of these players are going to come and go. they can be hot today and not tomorrow. So the opportunities that I see are really in kind of these short-term flips. It's 12 months or less, you're buying and you're selling. And I think that the way that you can kind of really hedge your bets with this thing, and I guess my overall advice to help cover yourself, as my wife was talking about, is to buy the established players, have a certain amount of your portfolio or your collection, your investment in established players like the LeBrons, the MJs, the Patrick Mahomes, the Acuñas. These are superstars, they're established, and it's more or less just trying to find values within those players. And have, a good size, a good chunk in those players to where it's fairly safe. I mean, look, again, we talk about guys can get injured, they could be gone. You look at Andrew Luck, he retires out of nowhere. There are no guarantees, but if you have, a significant amount in those players, then you're able to, have some maneuverability when needed. Be really mindful of timing, guys. When we're buying, and I do this too, I'm just, it's all emotional, it's fun, we're having a great time, and but think about, we have to stay disciplined with our buying times and selling times. It's gonna be very difficult, but the off season is traditionally the best season, the best time to buy a player, it's in their off season. So it's not a guarantee that the prices are going to be way lower, it's not, but ideally, historically, they are lower than in season if they're having success. Now, if they're in season and they're having terrible success, or they're not having success, then okay, then maybe there's some opportunities there. But the off season is really when we're looking to buy for any particular sport, and then we're selling during the season as prices are fluctuating with the excitement of a player or a team. So, guys, thank you very much for hanging in with me. I'm interested in hearing kind of stories of what you guys are doing to help kind of bridge the gap between the collecting side of us and the investing side of us. But I think that this, it's necessary to have videos that talk about just kind of, potential pitfalls, and just to be careful as we're all on a budget for the most part, and we've got to kind of pay attention to our tendencies, our human behavior of being a collector, and being careful as to how we navigate this ship. But all in all, I'm pretty bullish on sports cards right now. But again, it's just like with anything else, we have to cover ourselves, or do the best we can to cover ourselves. So anyway, thanks very much for joining, and we will see you guys next time. Have a great day.